All right, Jim, welcome. Chip, welcome everybody. And I think this is session 485, Chip, or something like that. I don't know.
87.
87. And good shirt there, Jim. I'm
You too, Andrew.
representing well.
Yes.
I didn't get the memo today.
So welcome. And Jim, how about we kick it all right on off? And do you have any wins yourself, Jim, before we turn it to the floor?
Yeah, I got a really exciting email or an email yesterday from actually a prospect that's super excited about what we've been able to uncover for them. So this is actually a somewhat different use case. They are specifically an IR company.
Okay.
Not going to mention who, but they're an IR company and they started using SaaS Alerts in trial. And they've already uncovered a number of issues on behalf of the customer that they never knew existed. So the guy that's in charge of the trial and working the relationship with us, couldn't contain himself yesterday. He had to reach out and say, "Hey, these are all the great things that are going on here, and thanks." So it's always great when a prospect wants to reach out and share that.
Jim, just quick question. So IR company, is it, hey, we have an incident going on actively. We deployed SaaS Alerts in this incident that's actively being investigated, and SaaS Alerts found XYZ in addition to what we've been looking for.
Correct.
Okay. Got it. Very interesting.
Yeah. So one of the things we talk about, is IR, and that there's a specific use case here for IR, especially for existing customers that already have SaaS Alerts, because when you go into the analysis tab, there's so much information there. That this is a great example of how that data can be super helpful.
Jim, I don't, are you postulating that all the MSPs on the call start to get into IR?
I think there's a natural extension there. Yes.
All right.
We're in the process of, I don't know if I mentioned this last week, I might have, but we're in the process of working now with one of the largest IR companies, trying to develop a relationship with one of the largest IR companies in the world.
Does it start with a KROLL? No, I'm kidding.
No.
You don't have to answer it. All right. Andy, do you have a question?
Yeah, I brought this up before the recording, but I think it's actually worthy of a discussion point, and that is SaaS Alerts offers a great way for us to analyze a prospect's data and the transactions going forward. But it would be awesome to be able to turn on Fortify without having to then reprompt or provide credentials that I don't have access to, that it would just use. And that that piece would add another layer to helping a customer realize the value of our relationship potentially, and of SaaS Alerts in particular.
Liran, would you like to reply to Andy on that one?
Can you repeat the question, Andy?
Liran, I don't want to have to re-enter credentials that I don't have when I want to enable Fortify after I've been given credentials through the customer adding their own through the SaaS Alerts invitation for the alerts.
So Andy, that's coming. It's in development right now, just entered testing. So we're going to get that out to you this quarter.
If possible, I would love to be a tester.
Okay. I will make a note of that.
All right. All right, Jim, let's hit up some wins. We got to have some here. Who wants to fess up some wins?
While people are thinking wins, can I ask a question, Andrew?
Yeah.
So I was talking to a company today. I know a bunch of folks here work with law firms. Does anyone have experience with an application called Clio? It's like an ERP for law firms, usually with 1 to like 100 employees. It's spelled CLIO. Anybody?
Can you give some context on the why, Jim?
Because first of all, they're really big, and it was posed to me like the fact that so many law firms use it in a core demographic for MSPs, because they tend to, their wheelhouse is 1 to 100 employees. That if they had a viable API, it would be a great application to monitor for SaaS alerts to monitor, and would be a great value to MSPs and their customers.
Well, let's just ask a quick question. Does anyone on here focus on, I have a decent law firm base?
So first of all, Michael and Dan already responded, yes, they have customers in Clio.
Okay. Okay. Sorry about that. Dan, okay, I see it there.
So Jim, this adds a strategy that looking at the different verticals that we support and the key applications or the top 2 applications in each of those verticals and being able to do those with SaaS alerts would be helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I guess let me ask Dan and Michael, because they said yes. Would you specifically think it would be good if SaaS Alerts was able to monitor Clio? Would that be a value add to your customers and to what you guys are offering them? You guys can either answer in chat or come off and answer. Okay. Clio stores data in OneDrive.
Is that its only area, Dan? That it store is that like its only data repository?
No, you can also have it go to Dropbox if you want to configure it to go to Dropbox. But what we've done for like Clio, and there's another one, I can't remember the name of it. I can look, but I just can't remember the name of it right now. And you create so what we've done in the past, because they want all of their data in one location, is create a shared OneDrive, buy an additional one, have separate logins for it. And then you're tying Clio to write all of its data in there so that the firm has access to all of that data. That's what's coming to mind anyway. I don't use it every day, so I don't support it every day, but that's what's coming to mind.
Yeah,
Dan-
our one client's pretty similar in that setup.
Okay. So Michael and Dan, you guys work with a lot of law firms, or are these the only ones you work with?
Yeah, it's not our top vertical. It's probably in our top 5, and it's probably number 5 for verticals.
Right.
But they can be such a PETA that we don't like to deal with them very much.
I think there's anecdotally close to half of the wins of the week that we've had have somehow involved a law firm that wouldn't take the advice of their MSP,
Right.
and follow basic security practices. So, like, Dan,
And that's very true. They don't like to spend money. They're like dentists, right? They don't like to spend the money. And they think they're smarter than everybody else. So, or several of them, I should clarify that, think they're smarter than everyone else. And so they don't need to listen to that advice until they get slammed.
And Jim, can I just throw something up real quick?
Yeah, please.
It's just, Dan, if you could stay on, but
Sure.
you're like, and I don't think articles like this help, right? It's like these articles in these legal firms perpetuate this kind of stuff. This is just out, Jim. Ironically, I had no idea you were going to ask this question, but it's, and I can put this in chat if you guys would like to read it, but it's like, this is, to me, is like a Reddit post more than it is something that is helpful to law firms. It's not the right questions. It's not the right context. It's like saying, oh, well, we shouldn't use people that, were ambulance chasing law firms either. So it's like, it's really misguided information, but yeah.
Yeah. The reality though is that, like, if they're not gonna work with MSPs in a way that makes sense, like most of them in the 1 to 100 FTE bracket, right? It becomes it's not an economical solution just to go out and hire, full-time IT people.
No, but the problem, Jim, is what they believe, and we've lost some. One in particular that had been a client of mine for almost 20 years. And the old guy, right, the guy who founded the firm ended up getting bought out. And now you have the young guns that are in there. And my gosh, why are we paying you $3,000-4,000 a month when we can just do it ourselves? We're smart enough. We can just handle it ourselves. And you go in with a value prop to go, well, wait a minute. How much do you know about what's going on in the real world with security, data breaches, this, that, and the other thing? And the answer to that is really none. And so they're flying by the seat of their pants.
Yeah, sounds like a great customer base.
Jim, may I ask a question of you? Because this brings up the relationship between 365 and Google Workspace with these other apps. I know that you're tracking that. Is there a way for us to know whether it's just using credentialing as a method for the app, or is it using more of 365 storage, and how to help secure that or become aware of that?
Is that for
Because
Chip?
Was that Jim?
Was that question? I think that question's for you, Chip.
I'm basically saying what Dan just described is a relationship with access to Microsoft OneDrive over and above just credentialing, that apps that are installed in the tenant, that would be great to be able to report on these apps are accessing these particular files at this particular time. And is that the way it should be?
Yeah, I don't know that Google gives us an endpoint that would allow us to surface that information. Microsoft, it does, and we're working on a new event to pull in. Andy, you're one of the people that's asked for this, I think, which is a report on enterprise apps and their permissions that have been granted. So Microsoft does feed that information. It's kind of complex to get it out, and we are working on it. But the bigger, I have a question actually for Dan and Mike, which has been brewing, and Andy, you're kind of side angled us into this. I'm familiar with Clio from 2 businesses ago with Jim, and we had a fair amount of customers that MSP customers that their clients use Clio for our cloud workspace solution. Back then, it was still a client server application, and I'm wondering if it's become a pure SaaS application. And the description that Dan just provided and Mike sort of backed up leads me to think that maybe not. It might be a hybrid situation where it's still running a local client, which is pushing data up into the cloud rather than a full. I don't know the answer to this, right? I would expect any software product worth its weight by now has moved to a pure SaaS model, or at least offers a pure SaaS option. But I'd be curious about that question.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I'm looking at the software list on this particular law firm, and I do not see a separate Clio client. So I'm trying to remember if it is web-based, and in the web control center, you're telling it, where that data is, what that account is, and then it's going and it's grabbing that data from there. But unfortunately, I haven't, I haven't worked with it enough. My techs have, but I haven't to be able to answer that question. But I'm looking at another law firm here in just a sec too.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to dive into it too deeply.
I was told, Chip, that they are SaaS, but maybe it was for someone that didn't truly understand the difference between hosted and
Yeah,
SaaS.
we can find that out.
Yeah.
I mean, the broader question, and Jim, is the one that you're putting on the table, which is this a product that's worth us pursuing as an application to monitor? You would think that certainly from a compliance standpoint, that right off the bat, it would make sense for law firms to want to do that. But as Dan points out, and most of us know from personal experience, law firms are kind of a pain in the neck until you get to the larger ones. There they'll have an internal IT, which are going to want to co-manage. Those guys, in my experience, are always dramatically overworked and underpaid because, again, the lawyers think they're the only ones that are worth $750 an hour. Everybody else is worth $25 a day. So they view IT as an expense, not as an asset to be protected. They haven't learned that yet. So, I mean, I'll answer your question, Jen. Half of me thinks that it's a massive market because there's so many law firms out there. The question is whether or not you can get them to pay for security.
Jim, do you know Jude from Kraft Kennedy at all?
No.
They're up in I'm happy to make an intro. They focus on like the top, they're in Manhattan, and they've got like the top, 100, like 50 of the top 100 firms.
Yeah.
And it might be interesting to get his perspective
Yeah.
on it. So happy to make that intro.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it. Okay. Hopefully some people have had time to think about some wins.
Yeah. Anybody? Now that we kind of chummed up the waters here and throwing lawyers under the bus and, anybody? Surprised. We've had such stellar conversations, Jim, over the past like months of this.
I know.
It could be
maybe,
July was a slow month because everyone took vacations.
Yeah.
Just saying.
And there were slow things like CrowdStrike and other small events, going on right in. All right. So let's move on. I'd argue that silence is a good, yeah. Okay, I like that, Sam. Amy, gosh, you had a point of the upcoming webinar, and then we'll transition into Amanda.
Were you this close to calling me Michelle again?
Was the M word almost?
Stephanie counts as $5, Amy.
I should really start keeping a tally.
The Russian
I just
judge
wanted to
is
remind
finding
everybody
him
about the Microsoft Defender for Endpoint Integration webinar is coming up on the 21st. I'm going to share the registration link for anyone who has not registered or didn't see it yet. Please join us. Otherwise, no other updates for marketing this week.
Very cool. Amy, when's the next newsletter come?
The last Wednesday of the month.
The last Wednesday of the month. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna just shut up right now. I'm not even like George Costanza. I don't even have one win and can leave. I
Just wait till we create the deep fake overlay for Amy. You're in real trouble then.
Right. Is Amanda with us?
I'm here.
Hey, Amanda. Sounds like you got some really good stuff on Fortify.
Yes, I'm going to share my screen and show everyone. So we have a new feature coming out for Fortify. It's called Parameters. It's a way to customize the recommended action per organization so that you can configure the recommended action to meet the standards that you want. So the classic example being you want to apply break glass to all of the account. You want to apply MFA to all of your accounts except for your break glass accounts. And so now with Fortify parameters, you can actually call out those accounts and not have the policy applied to those accounts. So everyone should be able to see my Fortify dashboard right now.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Right. So if you go to the actions, the ongoing, and the completed sections, you'll see the same column has now been added. This is on our dev. It's not yet released to prod. I'll talk about releasing it after I show it. So you'll have a new column here called Customize, and you can sort by it. So you can click through it to see the ones that come. This initial release of Fortify parameters will have roughly 12 recommended actions with parameters attached to it. We are going through the over 100 that we have currently and seeing which ones make sense to release parameters for, seeing if we need to add any additional support for an additional type of parameter, et cetera. So we will continue to release them, but this initial release will have roughly 12 recommended actions that come with parameters available for them. So when you see the customized item next to the recommended action, You'll get if it's already been customized, you'll be able to hover and see what the customization is. Or you can click the edit button and it's going to open up the fly panel so that you can see what has been configured. You can modify the configuration from here or add to the configuration from here. So you can see this specific action has a parameter for users and its operator is equal to, and then it's called out the specific users. So if I click into the user field, you can see based off of the organization that this is going to apply to, it is showing us the list of accounts that are available to that. So you can type in the name you're looking for and shortcut the list and pick from whoever you need to pick from. So we have users, we have groups, and same for the groups. You'll see the list of groups that are available to that organization. If you want to add an additional parameter that's not currently here, you click the add parameters button, and then from the drop down, pick the other type of parameter that you want to select. As you can see right now, I only have options to add 2 other types. It's because once you have added users or groups, once you've added a parameter, you can't add it again. So if you're going to select users and the operator is equal to, you need to then stick with that configuration for this parameter. So you can see here we have directory roles, again, equal to or not equal to, and then the roles will be based off of the organization. One more, I'm just going to show you if I added this specific recommended action is talking about the idle session timeout, and it's by default set to 1 hour or less. So in this scenario, you can actually pick that you want to modify that duration. It's set to be in minutes because you can see in the brackets for minutes. And so then you can say the equal to, and then you can type in the number. And so you can change the timeout session that it's defaulted to here so that it's specific to your organization, what you'd like to see there. You can see if you have selected a parameter and you do not fill out the value, you will be told that you must select at least 1 item. If you go to save the configuration with this blank, you're not going to be able to save it. You need to clear the error. So you're going to want to click the X if that's something you've chosen, not to configure for this parameter.
Amanda, while that's coming back, I thought you originally said parameters, like it was like Fortify, like you have a new term.
No, just Fortify parameters.
Okay.
Sorry, we're in dev and guys are actively coding, so hopefully this comes back in a second. So you'll need to clear the errors in order to save that screen and apply the action. If you've already applied an action and you want to now add customization to it, you can apply whatever parameters you'd like to, and when you press save configuration, it is actually going to reapply that policy now, given that there's parameters in place. So if you've already applied the policy, but then you add parameters and press the save configuration, it'll reapply the policy for you. So I was going to say also, if you start adding things here and then you do not finish the configuration, if you press cancel, it's not going to save it. If you press save configuration, it's going to remove it as well. So you have to clear all the errors and then save the configuration. Cancel also will close out the window as well. So per each item that we release, you're going to have the users, the groups, the directory roles for the most part. Domains is another type of parameter that we support. And then per the individual recommended action, if it's something like a duration, a time duration or something like that, you'll also see that parameter in the drop-down list for you to select from. Again, this initial release will come with around 12, and then we'll continue to add to the catalog as we research through which parameters, which recommended actions it makes sense to add parameters to. And then as we add recommended actions, if they make sense to add parameters, they will be launched with parameters included. So you can see the customization, like I said, from the action screen if you haven't applied or if it's regressed. Also from the ongoing screen, you can see here you have the customized column, as well as in the completed screen, you have the customized column. when you are creating a template, you also have the opportunity to configure within the template as well.
It's really well
So-
done. Andy was asking, is there a report that you could run to see who you've, curated these for?
So no, right now we do not have a report that includes parameters. Let me go back to any of these screens though. So you could see directly from here in the completed section if you filter or sort, I should say, sort by the customized column, you'll see who you've configured it for there. And that is kind of my spiel on parameters. So as far as release date, we are working on this currently to get it out the door as quickly as possible. It is in testing and it is wrapping up the modifications of the feedback on the testing. So this should be coming to you before the end of the month. Anybody have any questions?
I did. Can we get that list that you sorted? Can we export that so we could perform data operations to determine what customizations exist across the board?
Right now, the export button is not available within the Fortify module, but I do have that logged as an enhancement. So we will be working towards being able to export that.
Thank you.
What do people think? Thoughts and parameters?
Enrique is excited.
Yeah, looks great. I'm gonna definitely use them for the outbound limiting, people set of thresholds, things like that.
Excellent.
Are most people using Fortify? Start there.
This would have a dramatic impact on Fortify policies as they apply to classes of or types of industries, because now you're able to customize more specifically to those industries and particular compliance requirements.
Yeah. Makes sense. Andrew, to answer your question, 65% of all partners are on Fortify today,
Nice.
and 95% are now on Response.
Wow. That's fantastic.
Yeah. So, and about 30% or so are on Unify. So still got some work to do on Unify. But we've had a lot of good uptake on a lot of the features that we've released. That being said, I want to ask a question. We released Defender this week in beta, and we don't really have anybody on it yet. So I'd encourage folks to check out Defender, and so we can get feedback going on that and iterate on it.
I think we had requested it, but we were on the previous call. We were a day or two early. I haven't gone back and checked if they turned it on.
Okay. Yeah, it's on in beta right now. So
Is that a paid option? And how does that look like when it matches up to Huntress?
So when you say paid, you're not paying any extra for it.
Okay.
So, and in terms of the Huntress analogy, Huntress requires the agent. We don't. We're taking right from the API.
Okay.
Do other people charge extra for the Defender piece?
We're going to plead the fifth and not say anything on that question since you're asking it to us.
I'll ask it a different way. How much do you pay for other vendors?
That was pretty quick.
Yeah.
God said I should never lie.
I should have never asked that question. Damn.
We don't have an intention of charging for it, so I'm just curious.
It's not very much. It's like $1, $1.25 or something per agent, if I remember right. It's not very expensive at all.
Dan, you haven't been here long enough. You don't want to say $1.25.
50 cents. 50 cents. That's
one question. Dan, one thing that came up the other day, though, when we first were talking about this, was the what license level. Can you share what one you're running? Whether
Yeah.
it's free, blah blah blah.
Yeah. So I think what you're asking is what Office level we require of all of our clients. So Office Microsoft 365 Business Premium is the minimum for any of our clients. We do have a few that are on E5, but not enough.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes sense. Okay.
I don't know what types of clients are on E5, but when I look at E5, I just feel like if you're using SaaS Alerts, right, I think E5 is overkill for the most part.
I think E5 is overkill for almost any small sized company.
Yeah.
There's just way too many features in there to actually manage it. It's impossible to manage.
There's so much in there you don't even need or use or even know what it is.
Yeah.
E3 is almost like that too, to a degree. I love what you said about Business Premium. We're huge fans of Business Premium when you combine it with SaaS Alerts. Business Premium with SaaS Alerts, we call it right sizing your protection, right sizing your costs.
I would agree if I can just wrap my head around. In fact, I just sent a note to my account manager and Anthony. I'm trying to wrap my head around the whole SaaS, right? Or SaaS Alerts. How in the hell do I get started, right? What's the right template to build out? And that really is my challenge because there's so much in there, so many things to mess with, that you just get overwhelmed at times trying to build something out and trying to think through what these options will do.
Yeah, and
Can we wait till September 1st?
You can get SaaS Alerts managed for $125 a month.
I did. The problem with that is once you commit, $125 a month. Yeah.
75 cents now.
Yeah. A lot cheaper. You're going to lower it even further. The challenge that I have with that is going with that and really learning and grasping some of the concepts that you guys have in it. And then, training one of my guys to actually look at it so they truly understand, and then trying to back off. I understand once you're in forever. And I understand why you're doing it that way. I get it.
What do you mean you're in forever? Are you talking about manage?
Yes, manage. You couldn't back out of manage and still keep your SaaS alerts.
You're talking about Fortify.
Yeah, Fortify.
Fortify.
Yeah.
So manage is something completely different. So we have a managed module, but we have managed SaaS alerts, which is essentially we manage the application for you on your behalf.
Correct. And that's what I'm talking about, is the managed SaaS alerts package that you guys released.
I mean, you sign up, you co-term it with whatever you're using. So if you're on a year agreement with us, you just co-term. And if you on the renewal, if you want to get out of manage, you can get out of manage.
Oh, okay. That was not clear, because I believe I asked the question and it was told to me that once you're in, you're in. You don't have the option to back out.
You won't want to back out.
Well, I would hope that honestly, I would hope that would be the case, Andy. But the challenge is I want to get a tech that or a team that understands the product completely to be able to keep up with the changes that are happening and be able to implement those.
Yeah, we want that for you too, right? There's a lot of folks that don't have those resources or haven't gotten there yet, which is why we came out with manage. That being said, once you get to your renewal, right, then you can basically pick and choose what you want from there. If you want to continue with manage, great. If you want to just do software only, you can do that as well.
Understood. Thank you. Now I have a good, clear picture.
Yeah. The only thing you can't do is say, you know what, I'm going to try manage for 2 or 3 months and back out.
Right. You want the year commit or the
it's co-terms, whatever
term
it is. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Good. Any other things, Jim, from your side?
That's good right now.
All right. Well, I have an ironic part of our of our the remaining portion today, and that is, I chuckled because the CrowdStrike threat hunting report literally just came out, and Chip, it said 245 adversaries. I was thinking with CrowdStrike, isn't it 246?
You mean add themselves to
Oh,
the
geez, that's amazing.
It's cold.
Um,
This Andrew Morgan guy.
what's that?
Cold.
Yeah, 246. Anyway, but it was a really interesting report. I will be happy to put the link in for everybody to see. What I wanted to really highlight in the report was something that we talked about at Write a Boom last year. Carl Bickmore did a great session on it. I don't know if you remember it, Chip. It was on secure onboarding. And that is because of this stat that came out. That the use of, and you were talking about, they don't look at just, SMBs, but across the board, right? In the threat report, they saw this massive spike in RMM tools being used. So first off, surprising to you at all, Chip?
No, but really troubling.
Yeah, and now just to be clear, they classify RMM as things like just standard remote control as well.
Yeah. Not
One
necessarily MSP style RMM, but any kind of screen sharing. Hey, I'm calling you for American Source support, and I want to see your screen. I'm going to send you a link. My
correct.
neighbors get this, by the way, all the time. They've fallen for it twice now, and I have to go up and fix them up.
Do they really?
Yep.
So what's interesting though, and probably not surprising to everybody, is there was a stat in it that Screen Connect overtook AnyDesk as the most used tool by threat actors now. And probably based on that last vulnerability, probably put them in the no pun intended, the crosshairs, that it became very, much more well known. But that is one thing that came to light. Probably not something ConnectWise wanted to see in a CrowdStrike threat report, but they were mentioned as a company literally in it. So really interesting here about the whys behind, why they're being used. That I thought were pertinent to talk about and kind of put in here. The big one though is, the ability, and probably not, you guys, not that you never heard this before, but the evasion capabilities of RMM once the threat actor is in. They can be used during initial access, as I said, but it's certainly not the preponderance of how they're used. Which eventually will get down into application whitelisting, which if you ever heard of, John Strand in any of his talks, that's where we really are going to have to make sure we do a really good job. And I just want to pause there for a second and just ask everybody, are you guys actively application whitelisting all the RMM tools that you aren't using?
Whitelisting or blacklisting?
Well, it's called application whitelist, thing where they, you go through and say what you're using and not using, but you could say it either way. They call it application whitelisting.
In a perfect world, everything is blacklisted unless and until it's specifically permitted.
Right. Anybody, or are people commenting? Chip, I'm not looking. Let me go look.
Yes, threat
Yeah,
locker
somebody's
is-
talking about Threat Locker, which is definitely built on that notion.
Yeah, absolutely, Chad.
For those of you who aren't familiar, Mac OS is natively that way. No matter what application you install, you've got to then go provide explicit permission for it to access any of the system resources after the fact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. By the way, Rich, I saw that angry IP thing too. That was the one, Rich, where there were it was being the threat actor actually didn't they get into the code base or something like that, or no, they used a false website, a false website.
Right, yeah, website with the kind of a near name, you know.
Yes. You want to share that a little bit, Rich? It was really interesting. I don't know how many compromises they got with that, but it was pretty prolific.
Well, it was an article that came out on the portal with the news feed, and it just mentioned that, you know, they were moving in for the techs that are downloading the Angry IP scanner to do a analysis on a client's computer, and if they, you know, fat fingered the URL and grabbed theirs instead, it would start downloading all sorts of very elaborate ransomware code.
And a lot of people, they got a lot of people, from what I understand, too, Rich. It wasn't insignificant.
Oh yeah, they got into a lot of pretty high level systems.
Yeah. There's some monitoring alerting we do for our mem. Yeah, it is, Steve. It's certainly something we have to be really diligent on. So anyway, so moving on. You know, again, it comes back to you know, it's considered living off the land. And it is a tactic that is increasingly gaining momentum amongst threat actors. We see this, Blackpoint did a really good presentation on this last year too, about seeing the increase in living off the land, and they call them LOLB binaries. You know, I just want, you know, again, Chip, thought it was important for us to be aware of this trend that is being used by threat actors. And why is this next slide? Because where they are targeting is probably no surprise. Can you guys all see this, or should I enlarge it?
Probably help to enlarge it a little bit.
Yeah, no surprise of where they're focused. I mean, look at the top two areas, and by, you know, significant amount, right? So they are looking, and again, it makes sense because we have a massive supply chain, right?
Yeah, that's a really significant jump from the 2022 numbers.
Yeah.
You know what this would do? This kind of document would help go a long way for SaaS Alerts to market to MSPs, saying, look, we help make you more secure, and to help your clients ultimately be more to be safer. This is, I mean, you guys are right at this market helping us protect our tools.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, Chip, like significant jump here. And I think we're seeing it in the attacks though over the past 24 months too, right? You know, call it Okta, call it, you know, you name a you name a technology, right? I'd say the good news is MSPs, because there's been so much focus on us, I think we're doing a much, you know, I don't want to say, oh, you know, rest on our laurels, but knock on wood, we're not seeing as many attacks. So that is, I am very pleased that as an industry, we're not seeing as many. Steve, when you say a peer group audit, like, can you give me a sense of how you go about doing that? Like, you know, helping each other, making it a special project?
Well, me personally, I participate in some of the ConnectWise Evolve groups, and so there's a peer group there, and sometimes you know, maybe a good idea for one of those sort of activities. And so, you know, there's different ones that we might be in, and to sort of review, you know, how everyone's, you know, tools and arrangements stack up.
Yeah, and what's
type of audit.
You mean kind of like what's the process to ensure on an ongoing basis there's no type of RMM that could be present?
Yeah, maybe to review their tools and how are you doing? How are you securing this? And how are you just to be able to have another sort of set of eyes, perhaps.
Steve, one session we're doing at Right a Boom this year, we're having a whole, sorry for the shameless plug, but one session we're doing this year by we're having a whole hands-on keyboard set, tech session this year. But one of them is actually, we're going to do is how to test your own security tooling that it's working, right? Because so much of our tool, we trust, quote unquote, our EDR is working, but how do we test it? Right, is another way to add, kind of a similar question, if you will, right, of audit. How do we audit ourselves?
Yep, good sunny day sort of activities.
Exactly. So I just wanted to share here that the report goes on to talk about that RMM tooling is in, and I didn't put this in there, but e-crime, I don't know if any of you still have gotten prospects to, when we start to talk about, securing data and, different types of conversations about what's the, risk to revenue and keys to the kingdom and those kinds of conversations. From a business impact perspective, do you still get the threat actors don't have things we'd want? I'm curious, do you guys still get those old it was one of the old, reasons for not doing something. Simply the reason I bring this, quote unquote objection up, Chip, is, the increase, and again, I didn't put this in there, but what's fascinating was just that it has really nothing to do with anything other than getting your money, right? In other words, you don't have anything I don't want. Okay, great. Well, we'll shut down your system so you do give us something you want. You all have money, or we will just take your money through some type of, social engineering. So, e-crime just continues to proliferate as the number one reason behind the motive, if that makes sense.
Does. I mean, the motives really don't change. What's the quickest, fastest way to hit the most people to get the most money?
Yep. They did put, like I said, this area of the report I thought was really good. They did put a whole recommendation section in. And again, happy to share the URL with everybody so they can download it. But this I thought was really well done. Steve, coming back, if to provide guidelines, for you, if you're at Evolve next week, I'm assuming, on ways to go about to basically go through a checklist of such, right? Obviously starting off with always, baseline or inventory, right? We always want to know what we have, right? And then start to look at, how to mitigate other tools that aren't legit. It goes on, this last part, second part here of other ways you can look for things, which I thought were really clever. Not, earth shattering, but just good tips that you can put in place. And again, the other thing you could always do too is, what I think would be good is to put some honeypots in place as well. Chip, I don't know your thoughts on that, but let's just say you're not, I don't know, you don't run Screen Connect, but you do put a folder or a few folders out there with different types of RMM type tools that we would want a threat actor to potentially hit that could alert us.
Yeah, look, I'm a big fan of honeypots. Obviously it applies less in our particular world at SaaS Alerts in the pure SaaS environment, but for people running local networks, absolutely very useful tool to lay out some fake information and some fake gold and see who comes to grab it.
Absolutely. Ben, you're saying Ninja can do this out of the box. Can you just expand on that real
Yeah,
quick?
monitoring for processes and stuff like that. And then you can also use Sysmon. There's an MSP that put out a document that showed you how to deploy that to look for, to set up alerts for any sort of commands being run at a PowerShell or command level, and doesn't cost you a thing.
Got it. See, Andy. Okay, good. Strand talks about Sysmon a lot in his courses too, doesn't he?
Yeah, if you're not running Sysmon, you really need to reevaluate it. It's very low resource, and there's configuration files already out there that are already pre-configured. Like there's Swift on security that can monitor for common MITRE attacks, and it's all pumped to the event log, which most RMMs can pull from and alert you.
And the last thing I'll share here with everybody, Chip and Jim, is I'm putting together this document, and if you want it, just you can let me know, let Amy know. So as I said last year, our #1 rated session at Write a Boom was Carl Bickmore's. It was on secure onboarding. He built an entire onboarding document, and it really stemmed from the fact of when you're onboarding a client that he ran into, they had a 6-month large project going on too. And then when they finally deployed their threat detection solution, they found there was an active adversary in the environment. It made them completely rechange how they did their onboarding practice. And that assuming like out of the gate that anybody that they were onboarding now, like they assumed, for example, that maybe the previous MSP or the internal IT hadn't decommissioned their tooling correctly. And so they wanted to look at mitigating any of those potential threat vectors in the process. So I have the video, the asset and everything. And if you guys would like that, we're going to have that up as available for everybody on a landing page. And I'm happy to get it out to everybody if they think that would be helpful. Let me know. So that is all I have for the day. And hey, Dave, good to see you. What do you guys think?
All good. There'll be a good crowd today. 63 folks. Yeah. So good stuff. Hope everyone enjoyed, and looking forward to seeing everybody next week.
Absolutely. And let's see, let me just get this for everybody, Jim, too. If I got just a quick minute, I will send the CrowdStrike report URL with me into chat, and then we can let everybody run.
Yeah, whoever's now.
Give everyone a minute to click on it first.
Yeah, exactly.
What's that?
Give everybody a couple of minutes to click on that before we kill it.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure, man.
Ben, if you want to grab it too and share in Discord, that might be helpful.
Certainly.
Have a good week, all. See you in 2 weeks.
Okay.
See you, Gar.
Thanks, everybody.
See you, everybody.
Bye.
Have a great week.
Thanks all.
All right, guys. See you next week.
Bye.